Hello, I am Chris Potts, the Executive Director of the Historical Society of Harford County. And today I want to welcome you to this month's virtual presentation in support of women, an interview with artist, activist, and founding director of the Harford County Commission for Women, Joan Hodous. A lifelong resident of Harford County, Joan helped establish the County Commission for Women in the mid-1970s. Its mission was and continues to be to promote the economic, social, and political equality of women in Harford County. Today, we speak with Joan about her role in the early days and development of the Commission, as well as the ways in which her work inevitably expanded beyond county lines to the state, the national, the international level. In addition to this rich history, Joan will also share with us what she sees as the future of women's issues and activism in the years ahead. So Joan, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. I'm trying to force myself to go back to those days.
Well, we appreciate that because those days were incredibly rich and significant. So let's start there. How did the Harford County Commission for Women come about, and what prompted you to get involved?
I was chosen, of course, to head it by Charlie Anderson, who was the county executive at the time. How I accepted this responsibility is quite another matter. I had been feeling in my own personal life some insecurity at the time about, I had 3 children and I was worried about the future. How was I protected in case of all the things that could happen in a marriage, and even though I was a young woman, I knew that I needed to be protected. I said something to my husband's financial manager, and he said, "Oh, honey, that's pillow talk." I said, "What?" I said, I really, he said, "Well, you'll have to just be with your husband on that." So then I asked my lawyer what would happen, why I don't feel secure about my life here. And he said, well, let me tell you, if he dies, you're going to be a rich widow. Can you imagine being talked to like that? It was in this kind of milieu. My own friends, I think we were all pretty much unaware of anything. I think we were merely going along being our wonderful motherhood. Our children were all young. And I don't remember that we ever talked about these things outwardly. We did not. But I was having some depression at the time. And I was very nervous about my future. I was depressed. So about this time comes the other lawyer making our will, the will. And he sat at my kitchen table and he said, "Well, Buzz, Dr. Hodous, he was a friend, so he probably said Buzz, I think Fred. Anyway, he said, you will be able to come up tomorrow and sign this. I'll have it ready for you tomorrow." And I said, "No, I'm sorry, that doesn't suit me tomorrow. I can't be there tomorrow." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry. I am embarrassed to tell you, this is not your will. This is your husband's will." I said, but what about all these properties and things that he has bought?" I said, "What about?" And he said, "No." He said, "You have your paintings, you have your jewelry, you have your fur coat." what would that be worth on this day and age, you know? You have to laugh. And I was angry now, and I noticed shortly thereafter Now meeting advertised. I wasn't an activist. I was not in any way, shape, or form feminist, anything. I went to that Now meeting, and I wanted to be informed. What were our rights? And I was, I just signed my name, and that happened to be the exact moment, talking about synchronicity, I guess it is, that Charlie Anderson, the county executive, was mandated. I don't think he would have touched this with a 10-foot pole if it hadn't been. He was mandated to, because Baltimore County had Commission for Women, Baltimore City had it, and he had to get a Commission for Women going. And the women were pretty irate, I think, at the time. He saw my name on the list, and he said, I'd like you to head this up. There's really nothing to start it with. You'll have to research it, do the whole thing. I said, well, unfortunately, I said, I think we're getting ready to take a trip here now to Portugal. I'm going to be gone. He said, well, no, right now, I want to know right now, within 24 hours, whether you will take it or not. Or you'll have to decide. Well, I went back and I thought about it, and I said, I'm taking it. I am needing to inform everybody else here of this situation we're in. And so I would say that was sort of how I got into this.
Wow, so you were experiencing a lot of feelings of financial insecurity, social insecurity, and went to this Now meeting. Now, was that Now meeting local?
Yes, it was held right in Bel Air. I drove right out my lane, and I remember how I felt. I left my children, my husband, at the dinner table, squabbling or whatever, all doing, and I drove out, and I knew my life was going to change. I knew it.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was driving out of this beautiful valley, and that I had to smarten up.
Yeah.
The psychiatrist had said, get tough, get out there. But we were taught to be nice. Mm-hmm. That I remember Shirley Klein always said to me, you're so nice, like your mother. That's what we were taught to be. We were not taught to protest, object, go and stand out. Matter of fact, it would be an embarrassment for anybody to know that I was seeing a doctor about this. Mm-hmm. It was an embarrassment. Mm-hmm. You didn't do that in those days. You were quiet. You were not docile. You didn't have to be, but you were. The husband had the power. The husband had the money. Or men in general had the money. Mm-hmm. It was the secret behind the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. So you go to this meeting. You meet up with other women at this meeting, and you said you signed in. Now, did the county executive, Mr. Anderson, somehow see this list and choose you from the sign-in list of the Now meeting?
Out of that, not the activists that were there, no.
No.
But he did, by the way, this took a little bit of time, but he did, I think at that time when he told me I would head it, he pretty much had an idea of other women, crackerjack women, and there was a man on the commission as well, who represented different areas of the county.
Okay.
There was Kathy Riley, there was Shirley Klein, mm-hmm. there was Joan Philippe, who later became head of the whole thing when it became a Harford County position. But there was a while to go because right from the very beginning, as soon as it came out in the newspaper, the phone was ringing about perhaps distress, a battered spouse calling. I don't think it was a rape crisis right off the bat, but the women were using this, were calling. There was no phone, we had no office. So I remember Dottie Stansel was another who had connections in the county. Dottie was able to accumulate some furniture and sort of get it. But I had the phone. I gave the phone number of my own house. And I did that so that we could immediately answer that, yes, we're up and running. We can help you. So that phone was right in my kitchen.
So you and these founding members of this organization get together. You're in charge of leading them. You get a phone number which women start calling in as a hotline in distress.
Right.
Now that's interesting, because what I wanted to ask you was, what were the initial priorities of you and the other founders, and how did those priorities develop and change in real time? So can you talk about that?
Yes. So I didn't know these people, but I did kind of have a feeling. County was sort of small at the time, and I had a feeling for these people on the commission. I sort of knew maybe what they'd be good at. I didn't ask them, I told them what I'd like them to cover as a task force. I mean, I really took control. I had been head of arts and science at University of Delaware when I was in school. I had been teaching. So, I had some oomph left in my life other than just being the mother. And I was able to just say, this is how it is. The first priority would be the rape crisis battered spouse. That is the thing we've got to work on first and get off the ground. We've got to do something about it. We have women in the workforce. Who would head that? Who would head the displaced homemakers? These are women right around me getting divorced. And until the divorce settlement came, those women didn't have enough money, honestly, to have their daughters' boyfriends over for dinner. They were distraught. What would happen to them until the husband might have hidden the assets? This is what was happening right here and now and then. I remember I was having a business up in the town when some of this was happening in the courthouse. Decisions were coming down. It was, women were in great distress over so many things. Mainly it was a money issue, but there were health issues. For instance, at the time, great statistics about men and men's hearts and men's body parts, what they did, but not a study too much about women and what was going on with women's bodies at the time.
And their response to medications and developing,
any studies going on about that. There were children's issues. Children were being put into, I'm sure, wonderful homes that took in children, but nothing was monitored. I thought this was dire. You can't have children just situated out in anybody's home. There had to be some kind of, not licensing, but some kind of
oversight,
overseeing of these things. Then you had older women. What about them? They were grandparents. And this happened in my own family. if there was divorce, if there was an accident that your own child died or in any way, would the spouse be sure to let you have access to grandchildren? In my family, it did not happen. My person was distraught. She couldn't. I went to Annapolis. I remember over just that issue, grandparents' rights. It's amazing. We were going to Annapolis. Yes, we were going back down to Annapolis on a lot of issues. That didn't seem like a big one, but to me it turns out that it was. I'm looking to see if I've forgotten. There were enough issues that we had plenty of business on equal pay for equal work. Of course, was a huge thing, and still is. But women, the first thing they had to have was awareness of what they had to ask for, what they deserved. We didn't even think of these things. And being assertive. I mean, nobody knew how to be assertive, so we taught them. You're starting out, you're taking that person's whole issue and you saying you're understanding it. But in the second stage, you are saying, I understand that, but this is how I feel about it. And in the third stage, this is what I'm going to do. And this is how we were trying. I was going around to all these women's groups, but you see, women were not happy with this. They thought rights were going to be taken away from them. They were scared finally, but the rights were being taken away. I said you didn't have these rights to begin with. I went to men Rotaries. I went to Lions clubs. I went to try to explain to men what the new commission was going to be about. And there was objection. Some very, very educated men, head of our schools, were saying, well, I don't want my tax dollars spent on this kind of thing, Joan. Hostile it was.
Wouldn't
have thought.
Yeah,
I said, well, you have daughters, don't you? You know, aren't your daughters going to be affected by this?
Were they in opposition to the services that were being provided, or what exactly were they?
I was sending out, from the county. And here I am from doing this with the office. A lot of this time, we were operating here with the Rape Crisis Center even. I was directing that person, and I wasn't on the payroll of anything. I just did it. That's what we were doing, and that I did it. So I think they wanted what we were after, but they weren't aware that the men, until I put it to them, your daughter, later on when I was on 6 boards and commissions, I was hot. But then, it was too late then, the men would say, and at a big board meeting that I attended, we don't have money, Joan, for those girls' uniforms at one of these schools. We don't have money for that. I said, well, we have money to outfit all these boys' teams. At least we could field girls. We had to speak up, speak out, and be willing to challenge a whole board. They were all men on the boards. Very few women on boards at that time.
So it sounds like right at the time when you were feeling your least empowered, you get this call to step in and represent other women, and within yourself you found all this ability. You reconnected with your strength to lead and to assert yourself and to put yourself forward. And so you start operating with these other women and this
Absolutely,
person.
they gave all the support, really, you know.
And they were supporting this. You were
Yes.
as you were encountering opposition. But it seems to me like the services were really resonating, because otherwise you wouldn't have been fielding these calls from these women in the public who
They were
needed.
hearing about it. They
Yeah.
were beginning to become aware. They were beginning to become. I had a column in the Aegis. I started in support of women. Well, the men went crazy over that, calling it the bra column and all this craziness. There was never. I just laughed and joked and passed it off. But it was a serious thing to. You know what, I can't remember whether it's 50 years ago, all this business, whether it was every 2 weeks or every other week, we had this column in support of women. And then we were featuring all the commissioners so that they had a platform to say what they'd learned. They were working hard, all of them. It wasn't me at all doing all this. They were the best. I had too much on me. I had too many responsibilities, and all it took was, oh my gosh, the weather's bad, you shouldn't do, and a little worry here, a little worry there, and I was out. I feel like I could have been stronger than I managed to be.
But you were serving on numerous boards, you're saying.
I was.
And were these state level boards?
No, I was on a couple of school boards. We were trying to, in addition to the Commission for Women, the Center for the Arts, trying very hard to get that going. I was dancing for them and doing everything I could for them. I love that mission, which we still are on. But golly day.
You were raising money, you were raising awareness.
I was.
Yeah.
I was having a lot of events in my home here that were for sort of money-making events for them, for the schools, for the, I was on the board of John Carroll School there. I was very active, and yes, it was too much for me. My husband was demanding attention at that time because he was going to retire and go to Florida on his boat, and was I going to go or not? But I'll tell you, that was another area of who is the captain? He was the captain. However, at the end, he was not the captain. I said to him, if I don't get full say, and this was after the Statue of Liberty incident, where he had been harassed by all these boats clunking into him while the boat was came unmoored from the hard sandy bottom. Anyway, he took that boat and went straight from there to at 6 o'clock in the morning, no coffee, no nothing, and zoomed out towards Atlantic City, and then to Bush River, whatever. I said, I will not be on this boat again unless I get full command with you, equal, or it's over. And I got full command. Like, we'll pull this boat in. 5 hours is enough. Pull in. And we pulled in. Amazing.
Yeah, so there.
Yeah, so there.
And are there any particular issues that you see still on the horizon? I know when you started, you said, okay, you gave us a laundry list. So there was, you had to address violence against women, you had to address pay equity, you had to address issues of women learning how to comport themselves professionally and having confidence, the financial insecurity through divorce and or death, child care, rights of older women, protections during vulnerable times, access to health care, all these kinds of things. You said this is what we started out as our priorities. Looking forward, what do you see, how would you define today the priorities for tomorrow?
I think the new emphasis and awareness now of the Black woman and her needs as it's one thing to be where I've seen so much over the spectrum of all kinds of foreign women, etc. But in this country here, the Black woman needs more than ever opportunity and education, and the girls need to be taught to compete and stay in that game. They are the people that we've forgotten along the way here, and they need to be foremost, I think, now in our hearts.
So attention needs to be given to the support of women of color. Yeah, so
I
support
think so.
to women of color.
And other cultures who are now American. They'll work hard and they try hard, but we need to support it. Yes.
Immigrant women. You
And
mean? Yeah.
definitely the immigrant women. Look what they've gone through. Look what they have for their children to have a better life. What else can be taken away when you look at it? You know, if you can take away a law of the Supreme Court, what else can be taken away from us? You see, and I think religious groups have learned too that. That's another whole big step there to go into. I don't think you want to, but it's a huge thing that to have a faith, I think, that supports you is the most wonderful thing you can have. I myself have grown up in the Presbyterian Church, and I have stayed with that. I'm the oldest member of my church now. In Bel Air here. I'm the oldest member in everything. So I stick with that because I think a spiritual side is as important as and part of our health as any other part of our health. And I believe in that. My final word. Don't ask me if I want anything else, okay?
Thank you, Joan. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to speak with you about the consequential work you did and your dedication to improving the lives of women and advancing the rights of women here and on the world stage is really an inspiration. So I thank you for that work and for sharing your perspectives on what you would like to see happen next.
A little bit of everything. I think we covered a lot.
We did. We covered
We
a lot.
did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Chris Potts here, Executive Director of the Historical Society of Harford County, with a word about the importance of the pre-recorded interview with Joan Hodous that you just watched. An interview which has tremendous value, not just in terms of what it says about our county's past, but what it means for our future. In the interview, Joan told us the story about driving out of her lane on her way to her first Now meeting when she knows that her life is going to change. And so it did, not just for her, but for many other women in Harford County, because that one story led to others. Many of which Joan would relate in the Aegis column that she wrote from 1979 to 1982, a column in which she talked about what she and others at the commission were doing in support of women. And that work and those columns are not just a testament to the past, they're an invitation to the future, invitation to you and all of us to explore those stories further and to tell this rich women's history together. The question is, how would you like to help us? Would you like to research accounts about the task force that Joan and the other women formed or the funding they secured to turn the crisis hotline that began in Joan's kitchen into the SARC we know today? or to read about the colorful cast of characters at the Commission's first Women's Fair in 1978, or to learn about the dinner Joan had with Barb Mikulski and Betty Friedan when she represented the Harford County Commission on Women at the UN World Conference on Women in Copenhagen during the summer of 1980. These stories, and many like them, are waiting to be discovered in our collections, and we want you to come and help us tell them, to help us trace that trajectory from those early days of speak outs and now meetings that were calling for attention and services to be given to the changing lives of women and men in the latter part of the 20th century. Changes that were playing out around the world, but also right here in Harford County, where local women were running for political office and taking on new jobs, assuming new roles, and serving on boards, where they were speaking up, as Joan told us she did, for something as simple as funding girls' team uniforms, something today that goes without saying because someone like Joan said it back then. Help us to tell this history, to fund it, to research it, to write it, by helping us to conduct more interviews, to produce more videos, to document more material. You become a part of our mission, which is basically to preserve and interpret the past for the enrichment of the future. That's what we do. And we want and we need you to help be a part of it. The how is up to you. You do not need a degree in history. You do not need a prior publication resume. You do not need to currently reside in Harford County. What you do need is an interest to learn, a desire to discover, and an excitement to share in the stories you help uncover. So give us a call. Be in touch. We cannot wait to talk to you. And until then, many, many thanks. And we hope to see you soon.